What does it mean to be wealthy? Well, that depends upon what your definition of wealth might be. You can go to Webster's dictionary and you can look up what wealth means. I personally have my own definition of wealth. For me, wealth is the ability to survive or live into the future with your current lifestyle indefinitely without having to work. So, in other words, if you stopped working today, how long could you live before you had to work again to maintain the current lifestyle that you have? Maintain the place where you live, the things that you eat, your entertainment, all that type of stuff. How long could you live into the future before you'd have to work again? So for me, true wealth is attained when you don't have to work for a living. So I want to talk about expenses and assets just in the general sense, not in the strictly accounting sense, but in the general sense. An expense is something that takes money out of your pocket. A car is not an investment, it's an expense. Now, if we're talking about 1960 Ferrari that just sits in a garage and it's a collectible, now that's different. That might be an investment. But as far as your day-to-day, car that you drive on a day-to-day basis, that's an expense because that's something that's going to always cost you money. Bills, electric bills, gas bills, iPods, DVDs, cell phones, and rent. Those are all things that take your money away from you. Now, if we're talking about assets, you can think of an asset as something that puts money in your pocket, something that makes money for you. A house is an example of an asset. For most people, a house is the biggest investment that they will ever make. Houses are good investments because real estate always goes up in value. Now, you might have market correction here and there, but for the most part, the value of land and the value of a house is always going to go up. Stocks, bonds, in the general sense, if you look at the entire stock market, those are going to go up over time. Those are going to make you money over time. So those are assets. And mutual funds, which is a combination of both stocks and bonds. Those are all assets. So if you want to be rich, if you want to be wealthy, spend your life buying assets, not expenses. So wealthy people in the upper class, they buy assets and they eventually have their money work for them. And they do buy luxuries, but they buy luxuries with the money that's generated from those assets. Poor people only have expenses and they work for money all their life and they buy luxuries first. I guess if I were to put myself in one of these two categories, I would be a poor person because I'm not to the point yet where I can have all my money work for me. I still have to work for money. Wealthy people, when they do have money, they put that money and they put those assets into investments that have a high rate of return. So the rate of return is nothing more than a ratio. It's the ratio of money gained or lost, and it compares the money you put in to the money you made. So for example, let's say you have $1,000. Let's say you buy an investment. You put your money into an asset that's $1,000, and then at the end of the year, that asset is then worth $1,050. So what's your profit on that? Well, your profit's $50. So your rate of return is the profit divided by the money you had at the beginning. So 50 divided by 100 is 5%. So 5% rate of return, it's not too bad. So talking about wealth, talking about rate of return, we also have to address inflation. So let me go ahead and bring up the inflation PowerPoint. Here we go. Now, in 1989, I saw the movie Batman for $3.50. 1997, I saw Titanic for $6.50. I saw it twice. 2009, I saw Up with my wife, and we spent $10.50 per ticket on that movie. So why are these prices always going up? McDonald's hamburger prices, if you look at McDonald's hamburger prices, they've consistently gone up over time. In 1964, they used to be 15 cents for a hamburger. 1997 was 55 cents, and I think right now it's, I don't know, like around $1 or something like that. So inflation is the increase in price levels over time. So why does inflation happen, and why don't prices just stay the same? Well, it has to deal with a cycle. And this is pretty much the cycle boiled down to, this is a very general cycle. There are other factors as to why inflation happens, but this is the simplified, boiled down version. So let's say we've got a person, and this guy, he works at a bread company. And he can currently buy 10 loaves of bread for $10. So a loaf of bread is $1. Okay, well, companies, businesses, they're in the business of making money. They have to make a profit to stay in business. So to do that, they will normally raise their prices. Their prices go up. So let's say they raise their price for a loaf of bread, and this loaf of bread is now not $1, but it's $1.50. Well, now our guy, he can't buy as many loaves of bread that for $10 as he could. And so what do you think he does? Well, he goes to his boss, and he asks his boss for a raise. His boss might give him a raise. This is, let's say our guy, he works at this bread factory, so his boss gives him a raise. But now this bread factory has increased expenses. So now to make more of a profit, what do they have to do? They have to raise the price of their bread. So they raise the price of their bread, and then it's a cycle. The guy doesn't have enough money. He needs to go to his boss again for a raise, and then that's more expenses for the bread company, and then they have to raise prices again. So this is the cycle, and this is why inflation happens. And inflation will just continue to happen. So the rate of inflation per year, on average, it's been 3% a year. So if you leave your money under a mattress, that's not a good idea, because $1,000 today isn't going to be worth the same. You're not going to be able to buy the same amount of stuff that you would be able to in 10 years because of inflation. So that's why you need to put money into investments that have a rate of return that's higher than inflation. So let's look at what happens with a loaf of bread. So price of the loaf of bread is $2 year one. And if inflation's 3%, then you can expect this loaf of bread to go up 6 cents. So the price after 1 year is $2.06. So what happens year two? Well, the price of bread is now $2.06. Let's multiply that times 3%, the rate of inflation, and we get 6.18 cents. So now we add that onto our loaf of bread, and now our loaf of bread is $2.12. Now, as you can see, the price just keeps going up. Let's look at salaries. Right now, I make $40,000 a year. So in order for my salary to keep up with inflation, it's got to keep up with 3%. So I multiply 40,000 times 3%, and that's $1,200. I mean, it's not a small amount of money if we're talking thousands of dollars. So in order for my salary to keep up with inflation, I've got to make $41,200. And let's see, for year two, I've got to make at least $42,436. So this right here, this is nothing more than the future value equation for compounding interest, and it also works for inflation. Future value equals present value times 1 plus I to the nth power. N is the number of periods. So how much will $40,000 be worth in 10 years due to inflation? Well, using this formula, we can plug in these numbers, and we can see that $40,000 is going to be worth $53,757 in 10 years. So things to remember: wealthy people, they put their investments they put their money in investments that will provide them a rate of return, and that rate of return has to be greater than the rate of inflation, which is 3%.